This is one of our darkest days as a city, and I know that we're much better than this.
The officers are dealing with some cars that have been lit on fire in the intersection. Bottles are being thrown at them. There's a liquor store that was just lit on fire across the corner from us. There's a baby coming out from the building next door. They're evacuating people.
How are you going to enforce a curfew tomorrow?
I think we're going to have to go, but thanks for the time.
How are you going to enforce a curfew tomorrow when kids are out of school?
This is absolutely disgusting. Stay the hell home.
Go!
They need to have their butts at home. They need to be in their home units with their families studying and doing something with their life. Not out here protesting about something that's not really about nothing.
You looted, you stole medicine from old people and everything. Guys, we're doing this the wrong way.
We were building 60 affordable apartments for senior citizens. I don't know why somebody would do this. I can't fathom nor justify why this could happen like this.
This is just another example of the sad state of this city at this point.
They do not respect this young man's death.
You realize you have a mic in your pocket?
No, I don't.
Kids, yo.
Because it shows two things. First of all, it shows a totally different perspective than what we saw before that initial cell phone video. You can really get a sense of seeing the legs and the way that he was transported and a different point along the journey here when they put those leg irons on. The other thing that it shows is that if you believe the timeline that the police gave, this is several minutes since he had actually been put into the police van. This is after he asked for an inhaler. This is after the police, the driver of that van, said that he was behaving in a way that was irate. And so they pulled over, they made this stop and put those leg irons on him. So I would think that a lot of people would be curious to see, is he in any worse shape than he was initially when you see that other cell phone video that was taken just several minutes prior? And, you know, does it seem as if he's in the same condition? And many people say they believe it's the transport, but there are others who saw that initial video say something had to happen before he even got into that van. So I think the more video you see, the better. And clearly they're going to have to zoom in on that. And everybody is very curious as to what they're going to learn about that.
Suzanne Melvo, thank you so much. In Baltimore, you know, police officials there say the officers who've been suspended are all consistent with one detail. No use of force was used on this 25-year-old man.
No. No, absolutely not. None of the officers describe any use of force. None of the officers describe using any force against Mr. Gray.
That's police. Waiting to hear from these two witnesses. The first didn't want to be identified. He shot this video of Gray's arrest. The other heard the initial encounter Gray had with police.
Had Freddie Gray been up into what I would like to call a pretzel type of move, where they had the heels of his feet to his back, and then he was still in handcuffs, and then he had the knee like in the back of his neck.
I heard the young man screaming, "Get off my neck, get off my neck, you hurting my neck."
When we slow this video down, we've spotlighted it here just to try to get a better picture. These officers getting up from around Gray. It appears that Gray's leg does seem to be released from being bent backward. That seems to support the witness's description of Gray as being like a, quote, pretzel.
And their ability to voice concern. As of this afternoon, we don't have any new arrests. We have not had any major or significant incidents connected to the demonstrations throughout the city. And we continue to have officers spread throughout the city able to respond to any incident should that arise. Finally, I want to clear up some confusion. There's a lot of conversation about the report that is supposed to be issued. There is not a report. I want to be clear here. There is not a report that is going to be issued. What we are going to do, which is unique, is turn over all of our findings, all of our investigative efforts to the state's attorney's office. Those findings, we have an obligation to be accountable to the people of Baltimore in this investigation. We know that there are a lot of people who want answers, who have concerns that they want to have addressed. And we have an obligation to do our best to be accountable. We cannot release all of the information from this investigation to the public because if there is a decision to charge in any event by the state's attorney's office, the integrity of that investigation has to be protected. So by turning these documents, our findings, over to the state's attorney's office as quickly as we can, we are being accountable to them so that we can be accountable to the public. I hope that answers and clears up any concerns or confusions about that report. We just wanted to be clear. We continue to see reports of that, and we wanted to address any confusion that might be there. I'll take a few questions.
Captain, so nothing will be released on Friday. It will just be sent to the state attorney's office?
Our hope is to be able to provide as many updates as we can. Whatever new information that we might be able to share, our hope is to continue to be able to do that. We will clearly continue to brief what we have done, what you've seen us do from the beginning, is update as often and as much as possible whenever we are able to do so, and that is exactly what we will continue to do.
How have all the protests affected your resources to deal with other things? Like there's been a number of shootings the past few days. How are you handling all that in addition to this activity?
So we're incredibly thankful to our state partners, to our local partners, to the National Guard, everyone that's come into the city to help us as we move through these days. Those resources have enabled us to be able to have a presence throughout the city, to be able to respond to situations and emergencies. We're also dealing with normal calls for service, normal things that we see in the city. Those are being investigated by our detectives. Those are being handled in the same way that we would handle any other crimes that occur in the city.
Good evening, and we begin this Monday night in Baltimore, where there is an intense focus on several videos now captured of the same arrest. The suspect being put into the back of a police van. That suspect, Freddie Gray, would end up with a severed spine. He would later die. It is unclear how it happened. Late today, Baltimore police saying none of the officers described any use of force. You can see Gray being put in the back of that van. Tonight, the Justice Department telling ABC News the Civil Rights Division is considering opening an investigation into the death of Gray while in custody. Tonight, the police commissioner acknowledging this is a community on edge, with many asking what happened while in that van. ABC's David Curley is in Baltimore tonight.
Tonight, new video from a police camera that still doesn't explain the arrest and death of Freddie Gray. This cell phone video shows him being taken to a police van in a high-crime area. 7 days later, the 25-year-old was dead. Today, an autopsy shows he suffered a severe spinal injury. Police holding a news conference late this afternoon.
None of the officers describe any use of force. None of the officers describe using any force against Mr. Gray.
The family's attorney says the burden for that injury belongs to the police.
They're responsible for what happened to him because it happened in their custody under extraordinarily suspicious circumstances.
Police documents say Gray was taken into custody without force or incident. But then, according to police, he suffered a medical emergency. Police say Gray ran from police who pursued him, arresting him, as this video shows, at 8:39. Just 4 minutes later, at 8:43, is when he's put into that police van, and he asks for an inhaler. At 8:46, the van driver says he gets irate. They pull over, and leg irons are put on. A medic isn't called until 9:24. Gray is then hospitalized. So tonight, still the question, where did Gray suffer such a traumatic injury? And where was it caused? Was it here where he was arrested? Or was it in the van? Or is it purely a medical emergency?
I know that when Mr. Gray was placed inside that van, he was able to talk, he was upset, and when Mr. Gray was taken out of that van, he could not talk and he could not breathe.
Without answers, 6 Baltimore police officers tonight are on suspension. The answers so far are inadequate for residents who for a second night are out protesting. City leaders calling for calm.
Another day of racial unrest on the streets of America, but this time right in the heart of a major city.
Once again, we are seeing a scene with African-American protesters facing police in riot gear. These men and women talking about police brutality, the police for the moment standing firm, but there are real fears of more confrontation here.
And it was soon to come. Emotions had been running high for several days in the city since the death of a black man after he'd been detained by police. Mobile phone footage showed 25-year-old Freddie Gray screaming in pain as he was dragged and put in the back of a police van. Soon after, he was in a coma. Lawyers for his family say his neck was 80% severed.
We just want answers, yo.
Those at the peaceful protests that have also been here said this kind of case was not new. What's changed, they say, is people are now determined to voice their anger in public. 2 years ago, Tawanda Jones' brother, Tyrone, died while being arrested for an alleged traffic offense.
When is enough enough? How many people have to die? How many bodies? Give me a body count.
There have been more arrests here, but this is much bigger than clashes at one demonstration over a single death. It's part of what's clearly now become a national struggle. Aleem Maqbool, BBC News in Baltimore.
I think that the mayor and the commissioner is, they're pretty much under the gun right now. So I think there will be an arrest at some point, but a 10-day investigation or 10 days before an officer can speak is dead wrong. You understand? I mean, the community want answers. They want answers now. And what the problem is, there's a disconnect with the community and the police department, because when you look at the poor communities, these people are already criminalized in the police minds. My suggestion is when you have new officers come on board, before they're sworn in and given a badge and a gun, they should at least have 300 to 400 hours of community service to build the trust in that community that they're serving. You understand? Then the people in the community will be more likely to work with police, opposed to, hey, we see a crime, we're not speaking.
And at least they would know them. Exactly. They would be familiar with their officers.
Exactly, because right now, the people live in fear of the criminal element that's in their neighborhoods, and they live in fear from the police. And there are good people in these poor communities. But the problem is that, they're automatically criminalized because they're black and they're poor. And they live in a crime-ridden community, and that's not fair.
And when something like this happens, it brings all that up for everybody.
Right, but it goes deeper than the injustice with the police. You have poor education, you have economics. We're being oppressed. These people are being oppressed in every facet of their lives. You understand? So when situations like this come up, it's anger, it's frustration. So do I agree with tearing up police cars? No, because the message can get lost. But at the same time, I do understand how they feel. They're frustrated, they're angry. You understand? This is not the first time, this is not going to be the last time. We have seen this all over the nation in the past year.
Seen it in Baltimore before.
Right. And people are getting fed up. What do you expect people to do? That's like if you keep abusing a dog, over and over and over, he's going to attack, right or wrong. Eventually he's going to bite back. He's going to fight back. You know what I'm saying? So, the mayor and the commissioner are under the gun right now, so I think eventually there will be an arrest, but will there be a conviction? Who knows?
The overriding hope here, twofold. First of all, a lot of the people out here feel that those 6 officers that the mayor and the police commissioner have said were involved in the arrest and the eventual death of Freddie Gray, they believe that those officers should face criminal charges in connection with the death of Freddie Gray. Beyond that, They feel that there needs to be improvement with the Baltimore City Police Department. They feel that the relationship is broken, which we've also heard from some of the police commanders as well, and they feel that long-term, the only solution is to repair that relationship going forward, or else there could be more incidents and more protests like this going forward in the future. But that's the situation right now on Howard Street, right at the intersection with Pratt. That line of police officers still behind me, holding Howard Street, not allowing protesters to go south on Howard. And the protesters who are here, pretty much milling around here in the intersection of Pratt Street and just waiting to see what's going to happen next out here in downtown Baltimore, about 2 blocks away from an ongoing Baltimore Orioles baseball game. For now,